And Muammar Gaddafi is losing control in Libya tonight as fiery protests continue in the North African nation. Now, according to Al Jazeera, protesters are beginning to claim control of cities all around Libya from the nation's western half all the way to the coastal east. And while pro-Gaddafi forces still claim to have a hold on Tripoli, the capital city could be the next to fall.
There's no retreat, no retreat. We will continue until even if we have to confront you with our bare hands.
Now, Italy says as many as 1,000 people may have been killed since this revolt began. And what's America's response? Well, after days of remaining shockingly silent on the crisis, President Obama finally issued a statement earlier this evening.
We strongly condemn the use of violence in Libya. The American people extend our deepest condolences to the families and loved ones of all who've been killed and injured. The suffering and bloodshed is outrageous, and it is unacceptable. So are threats and orders to shoot peaceful protesters and further punish the people of Libya.
And here with reaction, nationally syndicated radio talk show host, Fox News contributor Monica Crowley, and speechwriter to Condoleezza Rice, Elise Jordan, is back with us. Guys, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
You bet.
You know, it's so timid, it's so late, too little, too late, so Obama.
I mean, listening to that statement today, could he spare it? And this seems to be fitting a pattern, Sean. And he did this again a couple of weeks ago when the Iranian people went back into the streets. He did this nearly 2 years ago when the Iranian people first went into the streets. An incredibly tepid, weak response. And look, if there are two examples that are crying out for presidential leadership, American presidential leadership, it's Iran and Libya. You've got enemy regimes of the United States, state sponsors of terror, heads of those regimes that are themselves terrorists, and yet he cannot give a clarion call of moral support to the people who are trying to overthrow these dictators.
And it's interesting because we can compare and contrast now his response with Hosni Mubarak. Certainly not perfect, but you know, he's a preacher compared to Muammar Gaddafi, who's now using warplanes to kill citizens.
And what's amazing was the speech to Egypt and about Mubarak was pretty similar, all in all, to what he said today about Gaddafi, which, aside from Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah, Libya, Gaddafi has the blood of so many Americans on his hands, and it's just absolutely ridiculous that there's no moral leadership here.
You know what? President Reagan called Muammar Gaddafi the mad dog of the Middle East. Well, the mad dog of the Middle East just met the chihuahua of the West in President Obama. Remember, in 1986...
I think that just made media matters. Go ahead.
I hope so. In 1986, Muammar Gaddafi ordered the bombing of a West Berlin disco that was frequented by American servicemen. It killed hundreds of people.
He also ordered
1988,
the Pan Am Lockerbie flight.
This is a terrorist in word and deed, and yet for 9 days the American president could not summon even the barest of statements, never mind ordering action, which we should be doing. The United States should be calling for an economic blockade, economic sanction, have a fleet or at least an aircraft carrier in the Mediterranean to deter this kind of activity. No fly zones in parts of Libya. This is outrageous.
I'm really baffled by the excuse that we can't take strong action because we still have American citizens there. Certainly, I want every single American out completely unharmed, but that almost seems like it's incentivizing, hey, pro-Gaddafi forces, let's just try to kidnap Americans and hold them hostage.
Let me ask you the broader picture here. We got Egypt, we've got Jordan, we've got Morocco, we've got Yemen, we've got Bahrain, all across the board, Tunisia. We've got all these countries now and all this turmoil in the Middle East, and a prediction in Bloomberg News today was that, in fact, oil could go to $220 a barrel, which means we'll double the price of gasoline and then some, because it's just over $100 now. You got, for the first time since the Iranian Revolution, you got warships of Iran going through the Suez Canal. And I'm thinking, when you look at the broad picture, everyone seems to think, oh, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. I think, no, this is the radicalization in the Middle East. Israel's now going to be surrounded, and after Israel, it's worldwide domination by radical Islamists. A possibility?
I actually don't think that this is radicalization so much as I think it's been...
But who will emerge? Who will fill the power?
I think the problem is we haven't been focusing on our pro-democracy agenda, and we don't have any opposition leaders to go to. And it's, you look at... Gaddafi's been in power for 42 years. It wasn't going to last forever.
All right, let me ask you this question. I'll give Monica a chance. But do you think that the vacuum that is now open can be filled and probably is likely to be filled by more radical elements in a lot of these countries?
I think there's a possibility, but if we show leadership now and we get in there before, further bloodletting and bloodshed, I think there's a possibility that we could turn this for our advantage.
You do?
Yes, and I think that also we have for so long, we have no credibility in the Middle East because we support despots alongside our democracy.
If Elise was right,
we have a chance to reset it.
If you're right, how does Obama have the moral authority to do it when I think he is perceived as extraordinarily weak? He won't even blow up a pirate ship that kills, 4 missionaries for crying out loud.
This has been a complete abdication of presidential leadership. 9 days without a single word of Muammar Gaddafi strafing his own people with his own military. He blames it on a scheduling conflict. That's outrageous. Look, I hope Elise is right. I hope that the seeds of democracy and human rights flourish in the sands of the Middle East. But while we hope for the best, Sean, we have to prepare for the worst. And what I think is that there is the dark hand of Islamist influence going
everywhere
on across this region, and they are stoking.
You're dying.
I do think this is different though from 1979.
Power.
You look at the difference in 1979. It was an Islamist movement. I think now that there are, hopefully, the base level seeds of democracy that have the grassroots movement that have it's more of a youth movement than an Islamist movement at this point, and let's hope it stays that way.
I just think that when you look at the Middle East, the bulk of Muslims in the Middle East are devout enough that if they're given the chance to vote, they will select
85% of Egyptians support the death penalty, Sharia, for apostates. That's pretty frightening.
It says it
all right, guys, good debate tonight. Thanks for being with us. Time now to check in with Greta Van Susteren for a sneak peek. What color are the cars tonight? Let me guess, pink.
I got them all, but I tell you, I barely got them all. We've been busy today, Sean. We went out to the center of the storm. We went out to Madison, Wisconsin, and we sat down with Governor Walker of the great state of Wisconsin. That's my home state, and we asked him about all sorts of things, including the phone call, the prank phone call, and we zeroed in on some of the things that he said on that phone call and what he meant. So, got to stick around for that one, Sean.
All right, Greta's coming up in 19 short minutes. Let not your heart be troubled. Our great American panel next. And tonight on our great American panel, he worked for former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich and served under 4 RNC chairmen. Republican strategist David Winston is here. He worked at the Washington Post, serving as an editorial writer, op-ed columnist, White House correspondent. He was once an NPR columnist until they've stifled free speech and stabbed him in the back after years of wonderful service. Fox News contributor Juan Williams is here, and she's an Well, it's true. You ought to sue.
It's true.
Why don't you sue them? You need to sue those people.
It's just,
And she's one of my favorite actresses, best known for her role on the hit show Dallas, currently the star of the docudrama 1 Minute. Well, Morgan Brittany is back with us, guys. Good to see you all. How you doing?
Thank you much. Doing good.
By the way, did you notice this congressman? We started the program with us tonight, Mike Capiano, whatever his name is, and he goes out there exhorting people in Boston, about, it's time to get bloody out there. I'm hoping it gets bloody. Talking to union members.
Where's the civility?
What happened?
What happened to it? I don't know.
That lasted about a month, didn't it?
Yeah, no, it lasts a month. But the Tea Party was accused of inciting violence. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wrote a piece, Hannity's a merchant of hate after the Tucson massacre, as if I would ever condone the assassination attempt of any congresswoman or any innocent person, which is absurd. But he doesn't agree with my politics, so they try and silence and intimidate conservatives. Liberals do it. The media doesn't say anything.
Well, I think the media should say something in this case because it is such an obvious contradiction, especially given that he came out after Tucson and said, we got to tone this down. So he, on a personal level, it's just obviously an act of hypocrisy.
But you have another dynamic here, too, and that's clearly in Wisconsin, you've had these pictures of Governor Walker as Hitler. And again, I'm sorry, but no matter what side of the aisle you're on, a Hitler comparison is never a good comparison. And yet, going to your point, Sean, we haven't really heard much from the media in terms of responding to those sort of things.
Every once in a while you need to go out on the streets, get a little bloody when necessary. Is that inciting violence?
You have to be careful what you say to people because these people have to be responsible.
Right, you and I are friends. You don't have to be careful if you're a liberal. You only have to be careful if you're a conservative.
That's exactly right.
Well, should the governor of Wisconsin be careful when he's getting that phony phone call and saying?
Yeah, that was. I like Governor Walker, but I think he's got to be careful. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Why was he even taking a crazy phone call like that? But then the whole suggestion that we thought about putting thugs in the street. Come on, that hurts him.
I know.
I think it did, but he resisted the idea of putting.
No, he said we thought about it.
Well, all right, so we thought about it, but he didn't do it.
That should not be on
Listen,
the table.
I think a lot of things about a lot of people that I don't utter publicly on. I mean,
Is that right?
Really?
That's it for you. That's it.
Okay, yeah, we better.
Okay, that's it.
But, you know.
You shouldn't think that about Morgan.
I don't think that about Morgan. What do you say that about Morgan for?
Well, she's a cutie.
I'm really disturbed. We got this story that these four Christian ministers, they're on a missionary. And they're giving Bibles away. And they get killed by these Somali pirates. These pirates have been, you know, terrorizing and hijacking. And I thought about this yesterday. I mentioned this a little bit on the program yesterday. You know something? If Ronald Reagan was president, I guarantee you that those Somali ships would be blown right out of the water. Why doesn't Obama go blow
1,000 pieces?
1,000
right
pieces.
Now. Yeah, they
blow
would.
them out of the water. Blow them up.
Sean,
we know who they are.
They're outlaws, aren't they?
Yeah.
Aren't they outlaws? Aren't they terrorists? Aren't they criminals? Where's the question here? I mean,
why doesn't Obama? We had ships standing. Blow them out of the water, and problem is solved. And America's standing in the world is don't mess with us, don't kill good Christian missionaries.
I don't think anybody wants to debate the larger point. Don't kill people, but certainly don't kill missionaries. There's no justification. But what you just suggested is really disproportionate to the problem.
Disproportionate.
Blow them out of the water.
They slaughtered 4 innocent people.
Let me tell you something, though. This is exactly what you see a strong military country like the United States take action like that. It generates the kind of resentment that leads to terrorism.
But why
how about our resentment about 4 dead missionaries?
Well, we should take action. And but let me just suggest, wouldn't it be better if we got all the countries of the world together and police these waters?
How about we blow up the pirates?
Okay.
But Sean, going to this point, Somalia, we know that Somalia harbors these folks. What have we done over the past year as a country to put the pressure on them to make sure we deal with this? I agree. I mean, you know, we just can't arbitrarily, you know, maybe this is the right ship or not the right ship. But having said that, this administration,
we know who they are.
This administration could be a lot more aggressive in trying to deal with Somalia because we know that's what they are.
I think it's worse than that. I think he projects weakness. The world knows that this president's not going to budge an inch, and they're not afraid of him.
What do you mean, weakness? What we should go in? You think we should go into, for example, into Libya and bomb Libya too? Do you think you just want to bomb everywhere?
If we get intel that shows us where Gaddafi is, who's killing innocent people, I'd drop a bomb on his house if I was president.
Don't you think we should let the Libyans solve their own problems? I mean, it's their war.
Yeah, but the problem you have, and this is what countries are having.
We got to take a break. I don't mean to interrupt.
Oh, okay. I'll hold.
All right, more of our great American panel right after the break. And we continue now with our great American panel. All right, so the Obama administration, just on their own, decides they're not going to enforce the Defense of Marriage Act anymore. We've got in Indiana, we got in Wisconsin, you know, Democrats just leave town because they're going to lose. And I'm thinking it's almost like do they not care about the rule of law? Do they not care about precedents? Do they not care about the people that hired them to do a job, that they're a bunch of cowards, they leave town like this, or that they just decide through a fiat, we're not going to enforce the law of the land?
Who said they weren't going to enforce the law?
Eric Holder. He said that they concluded that the administration can't defend the federal law that defines marriages.
Defend in court. Enforce the law across the country. They still are going to do it because they will enforce the law. But they think it's impossible now, given the scrutiny from the Second Circuit, impossible to say that you are applying the same standard to all Americans when you discriminate against gay people.
But, Sean, I mean, the thing that I find remarkable about this, what a huge change of topic. I mean, what are we doing talking about this? You know, the bottom line is, where are the jobs? How are we going to grow this economy? How are we going to deal with this debt? And all of a sudden, this president is off on this other topic, and the reason is because I think he's trying to divert attention from the fact that his economic package isn't working, and he's trying to get people focused on something else.
I think that's well said. And I got to tell you something. I'm worried more than I've ever been in my life. What's this country going to look like between the economy here, record debt in most states, record deficits in the federal government, debt that is unsustainable, and then we got a world that we have no idea what it's going to look like 3 years from now in the Middle East.
No, I know. When I heard this today about him changing his mind, all of a sudden I thought, where did this come from? It came out of nowhere, out of left field.
You think it was a distraction?
That's what I'm thinking. Don't look at what this hand is doing over here, because I'm going to talk about this over here. And I kept thinking about it, and I'm thinking, why all of a sudden is this coming up? Unless he's getting so much pressure from the left, from his base, that he's got to do something. Maybe that's it. Maybe there's so much pressure.
I don't buy it. You know, I understand your suspicion, but this is a guy that repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell just in December.
But why did
and at
this
the time
come up today?
At the time he did it, what did he say? He said, you know what? personally, he doesn't think that's, you know, man, woman,
But
woman
it
is a
came
marriage,
out of
but he's struggling with
nowhere,
it. But this in court, you know what? It's really hard, I think, to make the case that you're going to say, oh, yeah, this is an equal application of the law to everybody. You know, it's very difficult. Then you have a group of gay people who have a history of being discriminated.
No, I
President
understand
We have a
that.
law. Wait a minute. We have a law, and they're just saying, all right, we're not going to defend the law. And that's their role. That's their job. That's the Attorney General. Enforce the law as it's written.
Choice.
They don't get to write it themselves.
Correct.
But why do we have the legislative branch? Why do you have presidents that sign these bills?
That's right. But then they're going to enforce the law across the country. That's what
when they say they're not going to defend it, they're not going to enforce it. They're not going to go near it.
That's your no. That's not fair to them.
But here's the other thing.
I'm really
they are
noted
trying
for my
to avoid
fairness to Obama.
They are trying to avoid. He is trying to avoid the fact that this is the longest time we've been at 9% unemployment or higher, and anything he can do, any day that he can change that topic, then he is better off.
Did you say that when the Republicans in the Congress were bringing up abortion the other day? And everybody said, where did this come from? Why are you guys arguing about abortion? We got a Hyde Amendment. Yeah, you're trying to drive it home. Why not focus on jobs? Why not focus on the business people elected you to attend to?
We were focused on cutting spending so we can get this government under control, so we can grow the economy and create jobs. That was a part of that discussion.
Abortion.
Yeah, in terms of what we were going to do, in terms of what we were going to spend money on. Yes, absolutely.
I just think that
why
was a
should one
distraction.
federal tax dollar go to pay for an abortion? Why?
You kidding me? Why should we have planned births
First of all,
in this country with all the sad endings,
wait a minute.
the sad
Why
abortions?
should one penny go to pay for an abortion for somebody? Especially, you know what? I'm pro-choice in this sense, Juan. You know what? If you choose to get in the back of a car with somebody, if you choose to make out with them, if you choose to grab, grope, and fondle, if you choose to take one article of clothing off after another, guess what? You made a series of choices, Juan.
And what if your father raped you?
Okay, rape, incest, mother's life. I put in a different category.
Wait a minute. A minute ago, you didn't want to spend a dime.
I just said it. I just gave you exceptions.
Okay, well, I'm just saying.
But it's not the overwhelming number of abortions, Juan.
What if my wife's health is at risk, and I'm saying, you know, this is a really difficult...
Rape, incest, mother's life. What part of those exceptions? Those are well-known exceptions.
Saying. And so, you know what, you get into... It's not about always some girl in the backseat of a car and making bad decisions,
No,
Sean.
it's like if you make those decisions, then you pay the consequences.
And what about the child?
And what about
Let
the people...
child pay the consequences for
No,
bad
I don't
parents?
believe in abortion, Juan.
The father runs away.
There are so many families that want children that can't have children.
I would love
and
it.
adoption, okay?
But you know what happens?
You have the child.
Let me tell you, the kids end up with parents or a single mom in the black community now. 70%.
Such a pathetic argument. I
just think it's broken hearts.
Well, all right, but abortion isn't the answer either. It's a human life.